In VGC 2025, there were two Pokemon that both previously struggled to get results in the years before, who ended up getting first and second in the World Championships. You probably already know the story of Koraidon, who won EUIC and went on to tear teams apart in Regulations G and I. What you probably don't know as well is the other Pokemon, and what drew the top two players to it. This Pokemon is Brute Bonnet, and in this video I'm going to explain what exactly made it a world champion. Before I get into things, I want to go ahead and ask you to subscribe to the channel and like the video and hype the video, because those all help out a lot. Thank you. Brute Bonnet has quite a few strengths. First, it's a Paradox Pokemon, so it has great stats with high attack, good bulk, and low enough speed to be a threat in Trick Room. While these stats are good, they're not nearly as optimized as some of the other Paradox Pokemon, so they're not quite as strong as they could be. It would really love to drop some of its special attack and invest it into its bulk. As a Paradox Pokemon, it also gets Photosynthesis, letting it get a stat boost either while the sun is active or if it uses the Booster Energy item. Getting a Photosynthesis defense boost makes this Pokemon incredibly bulky on the physical side. With this boost, it can survive powerful attacks like Zamazenta Body Press, Glacial Lance, and Sun-boosted Flare Blitz from Incineroar. Brute Bonnet also has some very good moves at its disposal. It gets access to Spore, Rage Powder, and Pollen Puff for support, and Seed Bomb, Sucker Punch, and Crunch for stab damage. The standard set runs Spore, Rage Powder, Sucker Punch, and Seed Bomb. The base kit of Brute Bonnet is good, so what exactly made it unable to get results before? Well, Brute Bonnet has some notable weaknesses. Firstly, its typing is poor. Grass and Dark is offensively just okay. There is no single type that resists both, and it hits 5 types for super effective, with some of those being pretty important types like Water, Ghost, and Ground. Unfortunately, it is unable to hit some important Pokemon like Chi-Yu, Zamazenta Crown, Koraidon, and most significantly Incineroar for even neutral damage. On the defensive side, Grass and Dark is just bad. 7 weaknesses, including a 4 times weakness to Bug, make it so that something on your opponent's team is going to have a way to break through it. This puts a lot of pressure on Brute Bonnet to Terra into a Water or Fire type to be able to survive the turn and support its team. The only thing holding this type combo up are its resistances and immunities. Every single resistance that it has is actually very important, with it being able to resist at least one notable Pokemon per resistance that it has. Its immunities to Powder moves as a Grass type and Pranks moves as a Dark type are actually very valuable into opposing Brute Bonnet, Amoonguss, or Pranks or Taunt users. Psychic immunity isn't bad either, but it's not as important as its other immunities. As an offensive Pokemon, Brute Bonnet is actually not that strong. It's not bad, but it doesn't do a whole ton of damage. Getting the defense boost from Photosynthesis is very important, but because Brute Bonnet's base attack is higher than its base defense, it needs to heavily invest into its defense stat. It can't afford to do the same for attack. The moves it uses are also not that strong. Sucker Punch is 70 base power, and Seed Bomb is 80, so unless it's hitting for super effective damage, this Pokemon isn't really putting out much. The main reason that Brute Bonnet doesn't get used is because there's one Pokemon that does its job better in most cases. Amoonguss has been the preferred Spore Setter and Rage Powder user ever since Generation 5. Its stronger defensive typing in Grass Poison and access to Regenerator makes it harder to remove over the course of a game, while also providing the same support options in Spore and Rage Powder. Brute Bonnet also really wants to be in the sun to activate its bulk, but as a Grass type, this makes it extra vulnerable to Fire type attacks, whereas Amoonguss is able to work at its best without needing the sun. Brute Bonnet was able to overcome its weaknesses and find a place in the meta because of the developments in the surrounding metagame. First and foremost is the rise of its previously mentioned partner, Koraidon. After it won EUIC, Koraidon started to see a lot more usage than it previously did, with both its Clear Amulet and Life Orb sets. Koraidon would go on to be such a good Pokemon that it took 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at Worlds. With Koraidon's rise across Regulations G and I, Pokemon that thrive in the sun, like the past Paradoxes, also got better. With the sun being set up, Brute Bonnet is free to run an item like Citrus Berry to increase its bulk substantially while still getting a defense boost from Photosynthesis. This makes Brute Bonnet very hard to remove, especially when you consider Terra. Now, there is one small bit of anti-synergy between Koraidon and Brute Bonnet. Remember when I said Brute Bonnet's typing can put a lot of pressure on it to Terra? Well, Koraidon's typing also puts a lot of pressure on it to Terra, albeit for offensive purposes rather than defensive. This means if Brute Bonnet has to Terra to get a Spore off in the early game, Koraidon won't be able to operate at full power in the late game. When talking about other restricteds, Brute Bonnet also matches up well into some prominent Pokemon in the metagame. Earlier I mentioned that Brute Bonnet is incredibly physically bulky. Well, it's not weak on the special side either, and some of the most powerful special attackers use Ghost, Electric, or Water type damage, which Brute Bonnet is able to redirect or switch into relatively safely. Lunala and Calyrex Shadow Rider hate a Sucker Punch being on the field, it often forces them to Terra or rely on Sash or Shadow Shield because of the immense pressure it puts into them. This was part of the reason that in the finals, Giovanni Sischke, who would later go on to win the World's Finals, did not bring Lunala to the matchup. James Evans, who got second, also needed to carefully maneuver his Calyrex Shadow to avoid being KO'd by Sucker Punch. Brubonnet's success is largely tied to Koraidon, and one of the best ways to beat Koraidon is to win the Weather War. By putting Koraidon in the rain, it not only loses the bonus from Oracle Compulse, but also has the damage of Flare Blitz reduced by 50%. If Kyogre wins the Weather War against Koraidon, Bonnet is able to help out tremendously, because it can either go for Sucker Punch to reduce the damage of Water Spout, deal significant damage with Seed Bomb, or put it to sleep with Spore. Speaking of Hoenn restrictants, well, the good ones anyway, Bonnet is able to handle Groudon pretty well. It doesn't love taking a Heat Crash, but it can take it fairly well because it will have its defense boost active, and can then use Seed Bomb to put in a little chip damage, or put it to sleep with Spore. And good luck getting any headway with ground-type damage into this thing. The best restricted that Bonnet isn't great at dealing with is Calyrex Ice Rider. Unless Ice Rider is running Terra Water, Bonnet doesn't have a way to hit Ice Rider for significant damage once it Terras. This leaves it open to going for a Trick Room and retaliating with Glacial Lance. The best course of option Bonnet has is Spore, but Ice Rider is commonly paired with Miraidon, whose electric terrain locks Bonnet out of its strongest option. Miraidon is also able to punish a Terra from Bonnet, as once it loses that grass typing, Miraidon's electric type moves are able to tear it to shreds. Aside from restricted Pokemon, Bonnet also has qualities to make it good against other common Pokemon. Many physical Pokemon will struggle to 2-hit KO Bonnet unless they are Fire type, which makes it better than you expect against Pokemon like Urshifu and Chien-Pao. Whimsicott and Amoonguss can't use their Prankster or Powder moves against it, which limits their ability to prevent or punish Spore, even if Bonnet doesn't match up well into them offensively. In our last example, Speed Booster Fluttermane is pressured to Terra in front of Bonnet, despite its Fairy typing, because Bonnet tanks an unboosted Moonblast and has a 2-hit KO with Sucker Punch. Out of the most common non-restricted Pokemon at Worlds, its worst matchups are Fire types like Incineroar, Chi-Yu, or Volcarona. However, these Pokemon end up being Koraidon food, either going down to close combat, even at -1 in the case of Incineroar, or Flare Blitz. In summary, Bonnet's unique combination of high physical bulk, typing, and support options allowed it to be just the partner Koraidon needed to bring home both the gold and silver this year at Worlds. In the future, I don't expect Bonnet to be good unless Koraidon is around, and it's unclear how good Koraidon will be in a format without Terra, but I have confidence that we'll see it carve out a niche for itself once again. And that's it. If you like this video, go ahead and check out my video where I rank every status effect in Pokemon. But before I end this video off, I just want to say thanks for 1,000 subscribers. When I set this goal, it was at the beginning of August with about 170 subs, and it actually seemed to be a pretty lofty goal to hit that by the end of the year. And to do it about halfway through the next month was, I mean, it's just crazy. So genuinely, thank you very much. I don't know what my next sub goal will be. I'm still sort of just appreciating this one. Thank you for supporting me so far, and I hope that you'll continue to follow me because I don't plan to step off the gas anytime soon. So thank you very much and have a good one.